participants. Right, look, there I am. I'm down here. Hello. If I go up too high, it decapitates me. There we go. I lose my head, but I think we're good down here. So that's me. That's my face. And here's some stuff that I've worked on in the past. Right. Hey, Cliff. I'm presuming your name isn't actually Cliff, unless it is. Maybe it is. But sorry, I didn't see you guys before, so I brought you in. Oh, it's you guys. Hey, nice to see you again. Oh, really cool. Right. Anyway, let's move on. So, yeah, I think this system's going to work better. Like Facebook Live, I had all the fancy buttons and everything, and then it was just a total disaster. So this should be good. So I mentioned last week that I talk about story a lot because I think story is super duper important. And whether you write it down or not, all of you, adults included, are writing your story every single day with your decisions and your actions and the things you choose to do and the places you choose to go, all of that stuff. So we have been trying to work on a book for now about 2 years, really struggling to find time to sit down and actually do it properly. But your actions and your decisions are writing those chapters of your book. And in this day and age, you can write any story you want to write. And so I think that sometimes we need to start at the beginning to understand stories and who are our characters. And so I did go through this last week, but I had to say it enormously quickly. So I'll go back through it again. So this is my origin story. And some of you will be aware of some of this, and some of you won't have any idea what it is at all, I suspect. Oh dear, I am still ill. So this is the A-Team truck. If you're not aware of the A-Team, kids, if you haven't seen it before, you could probably watch it again. But adults, don't rewatch it, okay? You have to just leave it in the past. It was really, really cool. It's like part of your childhood. It was amazing, but it's not good. If you watch it again, it's not good enough, okay? What you need to know about the A-Team, they are so, so cool, right? There are these 4 ex-military dudes, and basically you could put them in any situation on the entire planet, and they will be able to get out of it. Obviously, being like military dudes, they end up in like some pretty borderline sketchy situations. But it didn't matter where they were, right? They were extremely resourceful and also amazing engineers. They could build anything out of anything. Like one time they made a tank that could shoot cabbages, which me and my friends tried to recreate some years ago when we were a lot younger and more stupid. You could take the sunroof off on my car. And so we went to the local supermarket and bought a load of cabbages. And then we were driving the car, throwing cabbages out the roof. I don't recommend that. I don't justify my actions. I was a foolish teenager. Anyway, so they're really good, really resourceful, amazing engineers, can make anything out of anything, can get out of any situation, and importantly, they loved helping people. And then Thundercats was super, super cool because they had an inventor as one of their characters. So not the ears, not the tail bit. That wasn't the bit I was particularly interested in, but this guy called Panthro, I think was his name. He was an inventor, and he could make and create and build all sorts of stuff. And I think sometimes you need to see a representation of who you want to be, because you'd be like, oh, I want to be a bit like that, right? It's helpful to be able to see it, because sometimes you can't imagine it if you haven't seen it. So I think that's really useful. And then obviously Lego. These days, Lego is very much build it, put it on a shelf and watch it gather dust, or buy an unbelievably expensive clear plastic box to stick it in. But when I was a kid, you had the red bricks and you had the blue bricks, and you could just like imagine stuff and then make it. And so if you've got Lego kids, I dare you to smash up the really cool stuff and then start actually using your brains, because it's so good for problem solving. And then additionally, this one here, there. Oh, I'm mirrored. There, that one. Scouts. When I was a kid, Scouts wasn't cool because Bear Grylls didn't exist, but he does now. So Scouts was amazing because it taught me to be able to, again, be super resourceful. It taught me to be really, really brave. And I'll show you that in a minute. Some of you that saw it last week, don't steal the thunder. But it was great. So I could make and build and create with, again, whatever's around me. And so when I go camping with my mates, I take a plastic sheet, a sleeping bag, and a bit of string, and they've got like all these ridiculous tents and all kinds of other menagerie that they have to go with, which isn't, mostly useful. I can kind of, pitch up and rock up and get sorted out. Anyway, so, what's your origin story? Who are the people that inspire you? What are the events that are shaping who you are as a person? Have a think about it. I mentioned this last week as well. this license to fail. So my mum allowed me to be able to get things wrong. And innovation requires failure. It requires you getting stuff wrong, because if you're getting stuff wrong, then you're trying stuff that you couldn't do before. You're learning new things. So innovation requires failure. So parents, children, we have to create an environment in which failure is actually embraced, because it's at that point you're actually learning. If you're getting things right every single time, you're not probably learning anything at all. Okay, and you're probably not trying hard enough. So my mum, she refused to cut out a picture of my own hand and instead said, Ben, you can do this yourself. And I'm like, do you know what? All right, I'll give it a go. And it was rubbish. And it didn't matter, right? It didn't matter at all. Obviously, there are times to get stuff right. You know, if you are going for those horrendous exams, then you probably do need to get those things right. If you are a doctor and you're operating on somebody, that's probably not a time to get it wrong. But in the lead up to being the doctor, you probably got it wrong loads of times as part of practicing. So it's really, really valuable. So my wife wrote this, and I think it's really, really accurate. It says, if we're too afraid to fail, we become too afraid to try. And if we're too afraid to try, what are all the incredible solutions we're going to miss out on discovering? I think that's really super important. And then there's only a couple more of these, and then we're going to talk about some other stuff. Got a couple of videos to show you, which is quite fun. But I grew up in a time before the internet existed, kids. Imagine that. Imagine if the internet didn't exist. What on earth would you do? How would you communicate with, adults? We used to go outside. It's really nice out there. There's trees and all sorts out there. And so what I did with the trees was I built a death slide between the dead pear tree and the cherry tree. So I've saved up my pocket money for a few weeks and bought 20 meters of steel cable. And because I've been in the Scouts, I knew exactly what I was doing. So I bought 2 pulleys from the local ironmongers, and then I cut up my climbing frame and I laid it flat so I could actually sit on it. And I could fly through the trees like Aladdin. But because, cell phones were a thing back then, mobile phones, not American, there are no pictures. There's no evidence, but I promise you it happened. I have some of the scars to show it. But these days, 11-year-olds are just doing this, gawping at the phone. Not that phones are bad, but I just think, like, what are you missing out on? What are all those adventures you're not going to have that could shape who you are as a human? We used to go out in the morning and we used to come back at night, and we used to have ridden 50 miles, and we go to every single jump spot on our mountain bikes in the whole local area. It was amazing. Really discover who you are in those times. Right. I'm going to do a little snippet of my backstory every week. So I think it's vaguely interesting. I've done a lot of stuff. I've lived a lot of life. But now, I mentioned this last week. We're going to do the same problem again, because last week was just such a disaster. But there's this thing called problem of the week. So I wanted to kind of tell you where it came from and then go into it a bit more. And I believe somebody messaged me just before this. I think somebody might have made something. I think it might have been Rose. So if you have made something, I would love to see it. But let's just go through this for a second. So I started my kids club a few years ago by accident. I didn't mean to start it. I just put a post on Facebook saying about some stuff I was going to do with my own kids when we took them out of mainstream education. And then loads of people were like, this sounds amazing. Where do we sign up? I'm like, oh, it's interesting. That's not the plan. But what if it was the plan? So I used to strip all the furniture out of my living room. I think it's on the next slide. But I'll show you in a second. I used to strip all the furniture out of my living room and then bring the kids in. And then for the first 6 weeks, we all made this bridge, and it was kind of okay. Like, I made a cool bridge, don't get me wrong. It's like hydraulically operated and it would open and everything. It was really cool. But basically, long story short, I was just herding children through instructions. And you get instructions with everything. Even this comes with instructions, which is insane. Oh, you're not going to see it. That came with instructions. Just put the batteries in and just push forwards. Like, we're so reliant on people handing out all the information these days that what happens when the information isn't there? Children, your parents are literally making it up every single day. They have no idea what they're doing. They just put a brave face on and hope for the best. Okay. The real world doesn't come with any instructions at all. So this was the magic moment, right? I drew this challenge for my students. I just put a box and I put a step. And I said, how do you get that box up that step? And over 45 minutes-ish, those 7 to 11-year-olds figured out what to do. And obviously, immediately they asked me, like, well, what would you do? What's in the box? All that kind of stuff. And so I just got them consistently asking the questions back to themselves. And that's the magic, right? You are all really clever. you can all figure stuff out, right? You're all amazingly clever. So just most of engineering, all that kind of stuff, is mostly common sense, and then some maths at the end. But most of it is just common sense. Right. So my microphone keeps escaping. I need to make a small adjustment to it with a bit of blue tack. Oh yeah, here we go. Look, this was my living room back in the day. So I had a very understanding wife, still have. We've been married for a really long time. But this was my living room. So in my living room, I had a full laser cutter, I had 3D printers, I had a photographic studio and whiteboards everywhere. Oh, and Bumblebee was on the wall. Yeah, he was pretty cool. He doesn't exist anymore. He got obliterated between the party I took him to and trying to get home. But I'll show you him another day. But all that to say, the whole problem of the week thing has spurned out of that, because what I've realized is the magic is teaching young people to solve problems. And there is a bit of a method to it, but a lot of it just happens kind of by osmosis. So what you need to begin with is a problem to solve. So this is the problem that I pitched last week, which is the same problem. I thought this is a good place to start. You know, how do you get a box up a step? So then you need to ask some good questions. So where does this happen? Who does it happen to? Who's got a box and why does it need to get up the step? How big is the box? What's in the box? Is it something delicate in the box? And how many boxes are there? So I always, parents, if you're listening, I always try and give a bit of theatre to the kids. So I would often say that actually there's going to be loads of boxes. There's going to be 50 boxes. So how do you get 50 boxes up the step? And then, you know, I'm going to show you a couple of videos in a second. That, you know, what might be in the box might be quite delicate. So you don't want to necessarily just lob it up there. Now, hopefully this works. Let me, I'm going to show you this one first. Okay, so I'm going to share a portion of the screen. Let's see if I can do this. Not that screen. Can I do it over here? Oh, that's a really boring spreadsheet. Not that one. Tell you what, let me try again. Share basic. Oh, this one over here. Right. Hopefully you can see YouTube. Somebody give me some sort of thumbs up-ish if you can see that screen. That'd be really helpful. Yep, wicked. Cool. So this is a robot learning to throw things. So whenever I give kids a challenge, they immediately go to, well, we'll get a robot and we'll get a drone and there'll be explosions and all this kind of stuff. But that's great if you've got robots, but more often than not, we don't. And that robot might not know what it's trying to move. So in this situation, if you're trying to lob a banana, maybe that's okay. But if you were trying to pass a box that had a vase in it, lobbing it with a robot arm is probably a terrible idea. So that's why you need to ask some good questions. What could be in your box? It might be that you've got just, I know, a car or something arriving. But what if you were delivering something that was really delicate, that was made of glass? We can stop sharing that one. Actually, I'll show you another one. Here we go. Here's essentially Boston Dynamics. I don't know if you've heard of Boston Dynamics, but you should check them out. They're amazing. This is like some sort of large robot chicken that can pick up boxes. So it's got a counterweight at the back. It's got some wheelie things, and it can drive around. And this one is quite delicate, right? This isn't just lobbing it around the place. So robots are really good, but still, this robot can only move one box at once. So how many boxes might you want to move, and where are you moving it to? Here's another thing I was going to show you. This is quite fun. Yeah. So this little Lego device, which is really cool, picks up ping pong balls and then can ping them into, you know, next week, which is really cool. In a second, he's going to launch it. So I use cardboard an awful lot, mostly because I don't have any fancy Lego anymore. But basically, use whatever you've got around you. Some of my students absolutely love using Connects. Some like using Lego. Some like using cardboard. It kind of doesn't really matter. You kind of use whatever you've got, right? Right, let me go back to sharing my PowerPointy thing. What's here? Here we go. I'm back. Oh no, I've got to cycle through the slides again. Let's whip through that. That's that one. So this is the challenge for this week. It was also the challenge for last week, but kind of go with it. If you've already had a go at doing this, I'd love to see what you made. And if you have had a go, have another go. Sometimes people are like, oh, I've read that book. Right? Okay. Could you read it again? I've had a go at that challenge. All right. So you solved it forever. Have you noticed how every single year there's another phone and another phone and another phone and another? There's a car that comes out every single year. There's always another way to make that thing better or improve it or whatever. So these, I'm going to start putting them into a group. Let me just move on to, oh, I'll go back to that in a second. Hopefully you can see at the bottom. I've got a group on Facebook, which is, if you search for it, it's called #InventorClub. I don't know if I'm not, hopefully that's showing up at the bottom. I think I'm in the way of it. That's what it is. I'll move myself. Hang on. If I move my face, put me over there, look. Down here. So if you go onto Facebook and you do a search for groups, and the group is called #InventorClub, and there's a light bulb at the end. If you request to join that, that's where you can upload anything that you've done. Okay, so any pictures or videos or images or whatever, upload it there, and that's where I can reply to you guys, which would be really good. But I thought I'd just go back to this for a second. So yeah, here's some things to do. Okay, choose a scenario. Oh, look, I'm going to move my face up here out of the way. There we go. I'm going to put myself up there. Choose a scenario in which boxes get moved. It might be a courier person delivering boxes to you. It might be a tree house. Maybe you live in a tree house and you have to get boxes up to the tree house. How would you do that? It might be that you live on one side of a valley and somebody lives on the other, and they've got to launch boxes at you. How would you do that? Right? So choose some people or a person. Who is this situation happening to? Is it you or is it somebody else? What's in the box or boxes? Importantly, if you go for boxes, that's a slightly harder challenge. And then try and come up with as many different ways to solve the problem as possible. So people often say, I've got my idea, but what about that idea or this idea or the other idea, right? Being able to come up with loads of different ideas means that when the first one doesn't work, which it might not do, you've got something else to fall back on, okay? So here's what I normally get kids doing. Oh, I can move myself. No, I can't. That's as far as I can go. But here we go. So you on your own, you with a parent, you with a sibling, or whatever, with your mates, try and fully define the problem. What's the problem you're trying to solve? Because often people think they're trying to solve the same problem, and then they go off in different directions and come back with completely different solutions, and none of it makes any sense. So at least if you agree with each other, what is it we're trying to solve? That's a really good starting point. And then I've started doing this recently, and this has been really, really valuable. If you start listing out all the doing words to do with that problem, so with your box, can you push it, pull it, poke it, launch it, kick it, twang it, whatever, come up with some more words. And those words are brilliant because those words will inspire you to think of things that you might have seen or that you might have heard of. And different words mean different things to different people, depending on your experience. So that's been really good. And then after that, it's then about sketching. And so if you draw out your ideas, it's really, really good for helping your brain to be able to process things and to be able to think further. Next time I might show you my sketchbook. It's full of absolute nonsense. Some of it looks quite good. A lot of it looks absolutely rubbish. It doesn't have to look brilliant. So that's it. Yep, get a box, add some mass to it, and then test out your ideas. And then if you get it done, upload it onto that Facebook group. That would be amazing. And then in the dying 2 minutes that we've got left, I'll try and get tighter at timings. Would you like to ask me a question? I move myself around. It's quite fun, floating about. Oh, look, do I switch sides if I do that? Yeah, I do. That's really weird. Oh, no, that just me looking. It's my own eyes. That's quite funny. Anyway, would you like to ask me a question? I've done lots of cool stuff. You can put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself or request to unmute. You can unmute yourself. Is this helpful? Because it's free and I don't have much time. So if this is rubbish, then do tell me and I'll either make it better or just bin it off. So yeah, hopefully it's useful. No questions. Oh yes, this is very helpful for us and convenient. Oh great, thank you very much. Cool. Well, so I am recording it. So my plan is to put it places. I might put it on YouTube and I might like edit out the nonsense and like shorten it down a little bit. Did you always want to be an inventor? That's a good question. I didn't know when I was a kid particularly what an inventor was. I just had images of like people making cool stuff. And actually, the first person that really nailed it for me, I met somebody in a bar in Woking. I was out clubbing again, and they smashed it because I was trying to explain what I did for a job, and they were like, "Oh, don't beat around the bush, mate. You're an inventor." Because I was kind of saying all too many words, and they're like, "You're an inventor," and it's true. And I'll show you that one next week. But I'm named on lots of patents, which I'm quite excited about. Rose and Henry think this is very good. Lovely. Good. Okay, cool. So we'll keep doing it then. So there's supposedly like 3 segments, okay? There's the bit at the beginning, which was, what was the bit at the beginning? Oh yeah, a bit about me, because I've done all sorts of different stuff. I've run my own businesses. I've worked at 3 different companies, including Dyson. I have lived all over the world and done all sorts of mad stuff. The middle bit is always going to be about problem of the week. And part 3 is about questions. So if you've got some other questions, chuck them on the Facebook group and I'll come armed with a good answer next time. But there we go. That's our time. We're up. 30 minutes done. Hopefully not going to have a cold next week. I managed to not cough too much. So cool. Thanks for hanging out, folks. If you think this is fun, if you want to share my posts and stuff with other people and say, this is wicked, come and hang out, that'd be great. Otherwise, see you next week. Bye.